Welcome to enVisioning Success, the weekly podcast where Laura DiBenedetto and Julia Becker-Collins share tips, suggestions, and stories to help you succeed in business. In today's episode, we discuss 5 strategies your organization can use to cut costs and seek discounts and savings opportunities, such as revising utility, advertising, and resource spending, and reevaluating past budgets and expenditures. And now, here's Laura and Julia.
Hey everybody, welcome to enVisioning Success. My name is Laura DiBenedetto. I'm joined by the always lovely and talented Julia Becker-Collins.
Hey!
If you're watching this, you get to see our stupid antics. So if you're not, that sucks for you and you should get on YouTube. Anyway, do yourself and us a favor. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share the podcast. Please write a review if you haven't and give us a star rating. Really helps us out. Our show is tiny. That's fine. And you can help change that. We like to deliver loads of value, and this show is all about helping you to grow your business, grow your wallet, have more fun, and quit being frustrated along the way. So today we're talking about cutting costs and getting rid of the waste. We have some stories from the trenches for you. And oh, Lord, all I'm going to say is there are so many examples of people just pissing away money, and it's just dumb. And I have some interesting stuff to start with. I'm going to tell you one story, and then we're going to give you 5 really awesome tips. So names of the silly will always be protected. So we're not going to mention those, but Julia and I know who we're talking about.
That's the best part for me.
I know.
And then if you, the listener, get the joke, you should write in and tell us because we'll appreciate that.
Very much so. Absolutely. All right. So recently, I sat down with someone to develop their marketing plan. And
I already know who you're talking about.
I know. This is an episode about waste. So waste not, want not. Anyway, I sat down to develop their marketing plan, and they revealed their existing budget. This is a probably $20-25 million company. And based on what they do, they presented me with their existing marketing and advertising budget, which was $800,000 in a business of that size. It's not, unheard of for a budget to be that large. The real problem was $500,000 of it is not working. So imagine as an owner, that is not in your dividends. That is not in your salary. I'm sorry, but I would be super freaking pissed. I want that money.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I mean, for some people, that's like 10 years of labor. So you can't be wasteful with money. And, a big part of the value that I'm able to provide and that we're able to provide to them is to go through the specifics of the budget, isolate what's working, isolate what's not working. It really comes down to 3 words: continue, start, stop. And that was the marketing plan. It's great. Continue this. You need to start this. You need to stop that. And that's how we work with our clients that already have businesses up and running. And the big stop was, please stop hemorrhaging money, particularly if you're moaning to me that you're not making even $100 an hour as an owner. I'm offended on your behalf.
Mm-hmm.
That's unacceptable. So let's fix this. And today, what we're going to do is give you 5 tips to make sure you're not pissing away several years worth of entry-level salary, because that's just offensive and that gives me an ulcer. So let's talk about great stuff. So the first actionable tip, I'm going to ask Julia to tell you all about it. It is check all your costs.
Oh, this is near and dear to my heart. Also, I just love this topic. I love saving money and not spending money, not because we don't want to spend it on our own staff. Pay your people well, but we're talking about extraneous costs. So check all your costs. Like Laura said, look closely at everything you spend money on and cut out things that aren't really needed. I have a perfect example. So we'll use ourselves. When I first came on at Vision Advertising almost 8 years ago, crazy. I sat down with all of our financials and I was like, what are we doing? Where's the money going? What's happening? And he, who shall remain nameless, who had the director position prior to me, had spent a significant amount of money on monthly services, annual services, etc. And then we never needed those items. So a very quick and easy way to make more money as a business owner is to spend less. So I probably saved us over $10,000 in the first 6 months by just going through line by line on what we were spending, cutting costs, canceling subscriptions, and determining what we actually needed versus what we didn't need. And just to be really clear for our listeners, this isn't about being cheap. This isn't about not spending where you should spend. This is about being very specific about what you spend on and what you don't spend on. Is there a free version of that? Do we even need this? When's the last time somebody used it? How is this making us money? And really checking in on that.
Yeah, a really good litmus test for checking your costs is, does this pay me or not? Is it a nice to have or a need to have? You know, at that point when things were being run, I'm just going to call him Dominus. It's Latin for dumbass.
Appropriate.
So there was just a lot of nice to haves in the budget that were positioned as need to haves. And the trust that I had placed in him was abused. So this is something that, you know, nice to have, need to have, is it paying me or not? So let's talk about point number 2, making work simpler. Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure, I'm happy to. Making work simpler, finding ways to do tasks quicker and easier, maybe by using a computer program that does the boring stuff for you. We talk about work better, not harder. I think that's a pretty common phrase these days. Work smarter, not harder. This is, goes back to that. Don't take 7 steps and use 7 programs when you can do it once. Time is money and you can't get it back. So making your life simpler, making the process simpler and streamlining your processes instead of using a ton of different applications. What do the applications that you're already paying for? What do they do? What's the capacity there? And are you really using it to the full threshold?
Yeah, you can use so many different things of software. I mean, believe me, I've been tried or attempted to be sold on a million different subscription services. Honestly, you should review these annually. Just because it was useful to you a year ago doesn't mean that it's useful to you now. We use 1Password. We are not sponsored by 1Password, so they just got a free plug. You're welcome. Please see me about sponsorships. That would be great. We love some free licenses. But inside of that, what we do is we actually keep track of not just the usernames and passwords, but what it's used for and what's on different credit cards. That way, instead of having to search through statements, we can actively see, oh, this is attached to that. This is the dollar amount, blah, blah, blah. And it's really, really easy for us to look at it. I mean, you can do this in Excel. You can do this in QuickBooks. I hate QuickBooks. But you can do this in any different thing that you need to. But reviewing it annually really helps you to make sure that your work is efficient, but also check the features and benefits of the software tools that you're using. Because if they're actually halfway decent, they're going to be adding bells and whistles all the time. And you might be able to reduce your overall software load with a few of them expanding their capabilities and just eliminating inefficiencies.
Agreed. And, going back to point number 1, but also point number 2, check to see how many licenses you have. How many people are you paying for? If you just cut your workforce, or you let go of somebody, why are you still paying for that license? Why aren't you going in there and getting a credit or making sure when it renews at the correct amount? It's a big way that people end up spending money because they had originally signed up for, 25 seats and it turns out now they only need 15.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually a very common thing with businesses that are in the $1 million and above gross earnings category to let a lot of pennies go unaccounted for. Smaller businesses, the ones that are just starting out, they're barely even made their first 6 figures, they tend to be more attentive to the details. My mom gave me the best advice years ago. Watch your pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. And just when you start to have dollars or you've had dollars for a while, doesn't mean the pennies don't matter anymore.
Right.
You really, really need to be attentive to all of these things. And if you need to be doing regular housekeeping once a quarter, do it. If you need to task a person on your staff with being responsible for all of your software and all of your financial commitments, subscriptions can kill you. So make sure that you're paying attention.
Agreed. Laura, can you tell us about number 3?
Sure. You need to talk to your suppliers. If you buy a lot from someone, you should be asking for a volume discount. And maybe this could be an opportunity for you to either A, improve your relationship with that vendor and perhaps give a little bit more money, but you get a lot more back. So it's more efficient. Maybe you're able to negotiate something down. It all depends. Sometimes someone would be happy to just give you a rate lock if you sign a longer term contract. In the case of our company, when our clients commit to us for a lengthy period of time, we rate lock every single time. And we're happy to do that because you give us this, we give you that. So there's many different ways for you to talk to your suppliers, vendors, partners, whomever, and see what you can do to either lock, reduce, or increase the efficiency of where your dollars are going.
I would also add to that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes with software as a service, SaaS, if you pay for the year in advance rather than month to month, you'll get a percentage discount. And if it's something you know you're going to use, so for example, we use Harvest for time tracking. We pay for it a year in advance because I think we save 10%. It's something we know we're going to spend money on. We know we're going to use. We love it. We're total evangelists of it, but it definitely saves us a little bit of money when we pay for it a year in advance. And we always look for those options. And when the staff comes to me and says, hey, we need to, spend money on this, this, and this, they know already to say to me like, well, if you pay for it all in advance, you'll save, 15%. That's a no-brainer.
Right. Yeah, it is a no-brainer. I think, one thing to really keep in mind when you look at annual stuff, typically for softwares that you haven't used before, try a month to make sure that you use it before you make the annual commitment. Because if you decide to pay for a year and you don't actually use the year, that's some of the biggest financial hemorrhage you're going to see.
Agreed.
It's just wasteful spending.
100%.
And this episode is about eliminating waste.
I would also add to that, great point, Laura, fantastic point.
Thank you so much.
Oftentimes you can find a free trial.
Yep. Not always, but sometimes.
A month, a week, whatever. Test it out.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I would say probably with all the different softwares that I've looked at for everything, to like from video editing to bookkeeping to this to that, I'm going to say 95% offer a minimum of like a 1-week trial. But those that don't, just make a minimal commitment to make sure, yes, I like this, and then go forward.
Another great example. I love giving out these resources as ideas to people. This is like, because I feel like when I was figuring things out, I'm like, well, what do you use for this? And what do you use for that? And I'm like, I have the knowledge. Let me give it to you. We have a subscription to Udemy, which is an online professional development platform that our staff has access to, that our interns have access to. We have an entire training program for our internship that's really robust, and there's some pre-programmed classes in there from Udemy. We found that not only, I think it's a 10-day free trial, which is great, but in addition to that, we found that if we paid for a year in advance versus month to month, that it would cost us the same as a 6-month membership. So we're saving 6 months by deciding to invest for a year. And we've already tried the software. We've already tested it out. We know it has what we need, and it has the capacity to do so many things to help elevate the knowledge that our staff and our interns have.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think that honestly, that's one of the reasons why people enjoy working with some of the higher end agencies like ours. We do invest in continuing education. Udemy's one of them, but also workshops and stuff like that. if you have an agency partner who isn't us, A, you're crazy, but B, make sure that they're investing in continuing education, and you should be as well.
Absolutely. Agreed. Laura, what's number 4?
Numero cuatro. You want to save energy. If you have a physical facility, you do want to try to use less electricity and water, things like turning off the lights when you're not in the room. Depending on where you are, if you're in a big corporate building, a lot of times there's just sensors on the light switches can be really helpful, but also not continually fluctuating the temperatures. Believe it or not, that really adds up over time. And, our last physical facility, we're a fully virtual agency now. God, we had offices for years. We're just so over it, especially like post-COVID and everything. It's like, nah, I think we're good. We like working from home. Frankly, I think our staff works harder from home because they're so happy.
Yeah.
But like the whole saving energy thing, it really matters. And for us, we had a space with really big, beautiful windows with tons of natural light. We had lights off probably good 60% of the time and just use the natural light. There's no reason for us to be wasting all that money. Like our big expense was obviously the rent line item and obviously the internet because you need that to do our jobs. But, the electricity and everything else, you can also negotiate with those vendors too, by the way. Back to point number 3, you can try to negotiate with them. You can, depending on what state you're in, sometimes you can negotiate for different benefits. I know in Massachusetts, residentially, there's the Mass Save program. I don't know if they have a corporate version of it, but there's a lot of incentives out there and sometimes even tax credits that can help you. And they're definitely worth looking into.
And there's for businesses, there's like individual people that work at those companies that you don't have to call the 800 number necessarily. So like for Comcast, they have business development specialists that only work with businesses. So you have a business account with Comcast, you get a dedicated business development person, and they negotiate your price down for you. So you shouldn't be paying retail on any of that.
I like that. That's really good advice. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
All right, let's go over the last one. Spend less on ads. Tell them what they've won.
Spend less. That is my motto. Keep track of whether your advertisements, and just so we're all clear, advertising is paid marketing. So advertising on Facebook, Google, print, billboards, etc. Advertising falls under marketing. It's confusing for people sometimes. Advertisements, keep track of whether your advertisements are bringing in customers. What's your ROI? And stop spending money on ones that don't work. If you are not seeing a return on investment after a reasonable amount of time, you need to stop spending that money. If you have a business that isn't going to respond well to a billboard, why are you spending money on a billboard? If you have a business that is selling professional services, why are you spending money on Instagram ads, right? Like there's a lot of things that people think you have to do to spend money. And that is not necessarily the case. And this is where having a professional marketing partner like Vision or somebody else to help guide you is really important because we understand where you should and should not spend money. Mm-hmm. And if your marketing partner is telling you to spend money everywhere, they are not a good partner. Run, don't walk in the other direction.
Oh, that's so true. But, I think particularly, so being the old lady in the room and having done this for 25 years, one thing I can tell you is that once upon a time, Vision used to provide radio, TV, billboard, and more traditional forms of advertising, including print. We used to do the media buying. We used to do the media production. I produced a number of commercials, a number of print ads, a number of billboards, all of these things over the years. But one of the major reasons why we stopped doing it is because you simply cannot provide a trackable ROI. You just can't. There are ways that you can kind of shoehorn things in with the advent of QR codes. But for the most part, okay, first of all, you can't be sticking a QR code on a billboard. That's how you're going to be increasing traffic fatalities. Don't do that. People can't have them up on their screen long enough on TV for it to be worthwhile. You can't have a QR code on a radio ad. And, there's just limited ability. Now, does this mean that these things do not work? No, they're very, very useful for very specific, limited applications. Now, when we decided to make the change years ago to become a full digital agency, that meant that we could provide evidence of success versus me just telling you and pumping up your sneakers and being like, oh yeah, it's totally working. It's amazing. And lying my ass off. It's really vital that you understand that if you're buying ads from somebody, there's a really good chance they're lying to you because they want to put food on their table, not yours. B, if this person who is selling you ad space cannot provide you a concrete breadcrumb trail that actually highlights your ROI, run, don't walk in the other direction. Because ultimately, I'm sorry, right now it's 2024, kiddos. Like, there's no excuse for you not to be able to track what you're doing. Any sort of advertising should be trackable. Now, there are still other things out there that are a little more nebulous, like PR, publicity, branding, crisis management. Those still exist in the world. But as far as advertising, if you can't prove that ROI, get out. And with the example that I talked about at the very beginning of the show, a lot of it was traditional media that was not performing. Is this working? I don't know. How are your numbers? They're the same as last year. Cool. How's your spending for last year? Oh, it's more. Huh. That's interesting.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, if you can't prove it, why are you doubling down on something that doesn't work? It's like eating ice cream to lose weight. That doesn't work. I know, I've tried.
You're bringing up some great points about objective data versus subjective feelings. And I just want to let people know that if you haven't listened, I think it's episode 32. You want to go back and listen to that episode where I take you to church about objective data. I give a whole sermon. I highly recommend it. We are an agency and two business owners that really believe in objective data, and especially with marketing, and not doing spaghetti marketing where you throw things at the wall to see what sticks. So just a little side note.
It's a damn good side note. Well, anywho, we're also going to be working on going forward. You might notice that the title of this episode is a lot clearer. Going forward, we're going to be trying to make each of the titles clearer so you can just scan through and flip through based on what you want to read about, learn about, listen to, whatever. And that's just me noticing we need to make that change. If there's changes that you think we could be making to make this show more enjoyable, more educational for you, we'd love to hear them. We'd also love to help you with your marketing if there's something you have questions about. You can reach us at vision-advertising.com. Pop in the contact form, anything you want to ask, feedback about the show or help you need, we're always here for you. Anyway, I'm Laura, this is Julia, and we thank you for joining us on enVisioning Success, and we will see you in the next episode.